and welcome to Read Across America Day. And on today, we're going to read The Oldest Student, as you can see it, How Mary Walker Learned to Read. It's by Rita Lorraine Hubbard, and it is a Cattle Call Honor winner by Olga Mora. I am Dr. Jacqueline Walker, and I will be reading this book to you today. So let's see what's it about. When we look at the back, it says, "You're never too old to learn." So let's see. There's some pictures here that look like it is showing different things in history. And it has Mary's first airplane ride, Mary being fed on her 99th birthday, Mary at age 121 in Chattanooga. Mary reads to her teacher, Helen Kelly, and Helen Kelly presents Mary with her first graduation certificate, which declares that she can read. So all of those pictures are there. So let's see. The Oldest Student, How Mary Walker Learned to Read. Whenever young Mary Walker was tired, she would shield her eyes from the sun and watch the swallowtail kites dip and soar above the trees. That must be what it's like to be free, she thought. You can see that's Mary looking at the birds. But Mary didn't watch for long. Even at only 8 years old, she knew the first rule of the Union Springs, Alabama plantation she lived on: keep working. You can see that. It says keep working. She knew the second rule too. Slaves should not be taught to read or write or do anything that might help them learn to do so. Mary didn't stop working. She didn't learn to read either. But at the end of each long day, picking cotton, toting water to Papa and the other slaves who chopped wood for the train tracks, or helping Mama clean the big house, she would lie in her little bed next to the crumbling fireplace and think about those birds. When I'm free, I'll go where I want and rest when I want, and I'll learn to read too. So there she is in her bed, thinking about what she's going to do when she is free, like how the birds. When she was 15, it happened. Mary and her mother, brothers, and sister were free. The Emancipation Proclamation said so. What it didn't say was how a family with nothing except the tattered garments on their backs could find food, clothes, and a place to sleep. Mary's father had died and the family was on its own. Freedom Road to Freedom Road. Across fields and through woods, ex-slaves surged like waves crashing hard to shore. Now that they were free, every road was Freedom Road. Many headed north and west and every which way, searching for long-lost family members or simply experiencing the wonder of being free. So they're traveling, going different places because they are now free. Others, like Mary, chose to stay in the South. An organization called the Freedmen's Bureau helped those who stayed to find shelter on abandoned Confederate land. Mary and her family settled in a one-room cabin, and for the next few years, she worked alongside her mama to help feed her siblings. 7 days a week, she churned butter, cleaned houses, and cared for other folks' children. There she is, cleaning. The hours were long, and if Mary was thirsty or hungry or needed to use the outhouse, she had to wait until she got home. At week's end, she would offer Mama the one lonely quarter she had earned. So she had done all that work, and she received a quarter for it. One day, Mary met a group of evangelists on the roadside. A woman with soft wrinkles in her kindly face placed a big, beautiful Bible in Mary's hands and told her, "Your civil rights are in these pages." Mary didn't know what civil rights were. She only knew that top to bottom, front to back, that book was filled with words. "I'm going to learn to read those words," she vowed, "but not today. Today, there was work to be done." You see there, the ladies there giving her the book, those evangelists, and then it says, "Your civil rights are in these pages." What do you think that means that her civil rights were in those pages? You think the book will tell us? And tomorrow, too. When Mary got married, she and her husband worked as sharecroppers, renting someone else's house, using someone else's tools, and planting someone else's seeds to farmland that they would never own. After they harvested the crops, almost all the money they earned went to pay for the housing, tool, and the seed costs. Mary was 20 years old when her first son was born. She opened her Bible and marveled at the squiggles inside. There had been no time to learn to read. A friend wrote Mary's son's birthday in the Bible, August 26, 1869. Then Mary dipped a pen into an inkwell and made her mark beside it. Not a letter, not a name, just a mark. It was the best that she could do. Her son was born, and they wrote his birthday in the Bible, but she didn't know how to write, so she could only make a mark. Let's see what else is going to happen. One day, Mary's husband died. She married again, and a second son was born. Then a third. Mary made marks for these sons too. Now she had 3 growing boys. More money, that's what we need, Mary thought. But the only other jobs available to Black women were as maids or nannies or cooks. The hours were long with only half a day off on Saturdays. And like sharecropping, they didn't pay much. Mary sighed. Words would have to wait. For the next 4 decades, Mary sharecropped and did odd jobs to help support her family. In 1917, Mary's family moved to the little city of Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was the year of Chattanooga's Great Flood. The story was all in the newspapers, but Mary could only study the pictures to understand what had happened. So it says she worked for 4 decades. How long would that be? Do you know how much a decade is? And then you would put that times 4. By now, Mary was 68 and too old to sharecrop, but she continued to work cooking, cleaning, and babysitting. She also fried fish, baked cakes, and sold sandwiches to raise money for her church. On Sundays, she would sit in the congregation, and as the preacher spoke, she would clutch her family Bible, the Bible she still couldn't read. So even though she couldn't read, she would still take the Bible around. When Mary was well past 90, she and her husband sat in the creaky rockers while one or another of their sons read to them. After the 2 younger boys died, the eldest read. Then Mary's husband died. Several years later, her eldest son died too. He was 94. Mary had outlived her entire family. She was 114 years old and alone. "Can't read," she said. "Can't write. I don't know anything." Mary stood at the window of her retirement home and gazed down at the world below. Words were everywhere, on billboards, on buildings, on store windows, and trucks. She sighed. All this time, she thought, and they still look like squiggles. So as you can see, there are the billboards and the buildings and the trucks, but it looks like squiggles because she couldn't read. So we don't know exactly what they said. Mary had about a new reading class that was held in her building. She pursed her lips. No more waiting, she decided. Time to learn. Out of her apartment into an elevator and down to the lobby she went. When the elevator doors sprang open, Mary saw people sitting under a sign with a picture of an open book. She could not read the words. A neighbor walked up to her. That's a reading class, Miss Mary. Can I help you over? Mary shook her head, then she gripped her cane, lifted her chin, and walked straight towards the sign. From now, she is going to the reading class. They have the people that are waiting, and then the neighbor is helping her over to the reading class. For the next year and more, Mary put everything she had into learning to read. It wasn't easy. After all, she was the oldest student in the class and probably in the entire country. Could someone her age learn to read? She didn't know, but by God, she was going to try. She studied the alphabet until her eyes watered. She memorized the sounds each letter made and practiced writing her name so many times that her fingers cramped. She learned to recognize sight words and then challenged herself to make short sentences with them. She studied and studied until books and pages and letters and words swirled in her head while she slept. That's her sleeping. Let's see. Think she's going to learn to read? One fine day, Mary's hard work paid off. She could read. Word of her accomplishment traveled, and people celebrated with her. Chattanooga's mayor, newspaper journalists across the country, and a man from the U.S. Department of Education who said, Mrs. Mary Walker, I pronounce you the nation's oldest student, all shared her joy. And then someone has a sign that says, Happy birthday, Grandma Walker. So that is everybody there, the mayor, the journalists, the TV people, the Department of Education. They're celebrating because she is the oldest student. So. As we're waiting to turn the pages, now you notice she can read. Mary felt complete. She still missed her sons, but whenever she was lonely, she read from her Bible or looked out her window and read the words in the street below. From then on, Chattanooga honored Mary's achievement with yearly birthday parties. In 1966, President Lyndon B. Johnson sent well wishes on Mary's 118th birthday. And in 1969, President Richard Nixon did the same. Mary was now 121 years old. So now it doesn't look like squiggles anymore. You can see the words that say store, shop, all different words. Buy. Because they were squiggles when she couldn't read, but now she can read. Mary received many gifts over the years: a radio, a sofa, her very first television, a new Bible, the key to the city, and perfume and champagne from the Canadian mountains. She also received something that brought back those long days in the Alabama cotton fields, her first airplane ride. From the cockpit window, Mary gazed at the trees and the rooftops below. No different than a horse and buggy ride, she joked, but she knew it was. As the airplane dipped and soared like those swallowtail kites of long ago, Mary decided that flying was a lot like reading. They both made her body feel as free as a bird. So there's the plane there. And she is taking a trip. Let's see where she's going. Where do you think she's going? Think to yourself where she's going. Each year before her birthday celebration came to an end, someone would whisper, "Let's listen to Miss Mary." The shuffling and movement would fade away until not a sound was heard. Then Mary would stand on her old legs, clear her old throat, and read from the Bible on her school book in a voice that was clear and strong. There she is with all the people while she's reading and listening to her. When she finished, she would gently close her book and say, "You're never too old to learn." And here are more pictures of her, different places that she went. You can see those pictures. That's her on the airplane. That is her celebrating her birthday. And on the back, it says, "You're never too old to learn." So thank you guys for listening. Of course, you know, this is Read Across America Day on Dr. Seuss' birthday. And we celebrate his birthday because he sparks the joy of reading in all of us. I thank you for participating and listening, and I will have some questions to give to your teacher so that you will be able to answer them. I really hope you enjoyed your story, and I will see you next time.